Let's hit it.
And welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I'm your host, Lori La Bey, and I'm so excited that you're joining us today. We are going to have a fascinating conversation as usual as we learn from people all around the world at all ages and stages of life. Stay tuned as we shift our dementia care from crisis to comfort.
Here we go. What you think about, you will bring about.
Welcome to Alzheimer Speaks Radio. I am so glad that you are here with us today. This is such a difficult time for everybody, and I think we need to connect as much as we can using all the variety of platforms available to us. So I appreciate you staying with us. For those of you that are new to our show, Alzheimer Speaks Radio is about sound information, not just sound bites. We're really true talk radio. So we take an hour to discuss the big and the small all around the world of what's going on in people's lives, and everyone is welcome to join us. I know that this can be, again, a really frustrating time, especially if you're dealing with dementia on top of it, and then you add the COVID crisis. But there are some exciting things happening out there as well, and we also want to give you hope, in terms of how we can shift our dementia care culture from crisis to comfort. My own mom had dementia for 30 years, and to be honest, I don't know how I would be dealing with that whole situation if she was alive now. I've talked with so many people that are so nervous. So today, I want to also announce that we're going to be doing a weekly COVID open mic every Friday at 2 o'clock Eastern, 1 o'clock Central, noon Mountain Time, and 11 a.m. Pacific Time. And we would love you to join us for that as well. Now, today we're going to be talking with Christine Thelker, and she is living with dementia. And we are going to talk about COVID-19 a little bit, but we're going to be talking about her advocacy and the wonderful organizations that she is working with to improve things and to stay engaged. Now, before I introduce Christine formally, I want to give a shout out to a couple of organizations, and I hope that you will continue to like, click, and share. It is our collaboration together that is really making a difference in helping people find comfort, in not only in living and dealing with dementia, but in this time of COVID. So first, I want to give a shout out to the Memory Cafe directory. It's a social engagement. Needless to say, most aren't gathering right now. I don't think anybody is, but we are gathering virtually. And so go to memorycafedirectory.com to get more information on that. I also want to give a shout out to Keith Gallus. A lot of people are still out there buying books. They're finding this is a great time to get educated or read their favorite author. Keith's book is called Parental Dementia, A Guide Through Living All the Difficult Questions. And Keith is an executive director with 20 years of history in healthcare, helping families through those tough times. And every chapter, really digs into one specific question. So it's a real easy read. And if you're not dealing with dementia, maybe you know someone who is. And, so it's worth a purchase. Now, you can get it on Amazon. You can get it at Walmart or Barnes & Noble. And it's also available as an ebook. But I would go to his site because there you can enter the code Lori and save $5.99. So Keith's website is real simple. It's the same as the book, parentaldementia.com. That's parentaldementia.com. Now, with no further ado, let me introduce Christine Thelker. She is from Vernon, British Columbia, Canada. And at 60, she is an advocate, an author, and a blogger. She's also a board member for Dementia Alliance International, and she previously worked as the Interior Health Authority for 13 years in various sites, including Dementia and End-of-Life Care. And her first book is coming out this year, and we will hear a little more about that. So, Christine, I am really excited to have you here. And every guest that I have, I always ask them to tell us if they've been touched by dementia, and if so, how and when.
I have. I spent years working in dementia care on locked units. That was my chosen career. I had a passion for dementia care and end-of-life care. And I was working right up till I had a stroke while I was on the job. And from there, I'd been having problems for a number of years, which they couldn't quite figure out. And from there, I went through another year and a half of a lot of unknowns and uncertainties, and then was finally diagnosed with my own dementia. So, you know, I always tell people, for those of us that worked in dementia care, or still a lot still do, the one thing we always said, that it would be the worst diagnosis to ever receive. And boy, was I wrong. Was I wrong?
Well, that's good to hear. What age were you when you got diagnosed, Christine?
55.
55. That's about when my mom started having symptoms, and she lived till 86.
Yeah, you can live a long life. You know, I mean, unfortunately, you know, sometimes it progresses more quickly than others. We're learning more and more ways to slow it down and, you know, stave off all those effects. But yes, it's a death sentence for sure. It's a terminal illness, but you can still have a good life. And so, you know, when I think back to all those conversations in our coffee rooms about, oh my God, I couldn't cope if I had this kind of diagnosis, and I don't know how I would manage if someone in my family got diagnosed, and all these, because we worked with it. But we worked with the end stages. We didn't know any young people. All we knew was that piece. Nobody told us about this whole other segment that is there. So when I was diagnosed, I didn't know what that was going to mean for me. You know, it was terrifying, because all I knew was that end piece.
And that's what most of the world, you know, a lot of people still think that, you know,
Yes.
That's their image of that. And it's so different. And I mean, I've been talking with people for 10 years who have been diagnosed, who are still speaking clearly and doing advocacy work on levels, and speaking to the public, and coordinating new initiatives, and all of those things. So yeah, things have really changed, but we still need more awareness out there, needless to say. Why don't you tell us a little bit about, for you, how, you know, when you first got that diagnosis, a lot of people say that they get depressed and angry, and, you know, the whole 9 yards, which is understandable. Did that happen to you?
I didn't get depressed. I got overwhelmed because I live alone. So I had to go home and digest all that news by myself.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that would be impressive.
There's no help. There's no resources.
Yeah.
You know, so that was hard. That was hard. It was like, oh my God, what's, you know, like, am I going to be in a home in 6 months with all the people I was just looking after? Like, what's going to happen to me? But then I got, I guess, sort of angry. And I just decided, no, this is not okay with me. And there has to be something I can do. There has to be some help out there somewhere. And I started researching. you know, and I felt bad for my doctor actually, because he felt horrible telling me he didn't have anything for me. You know, he's a doctor. He wants to help, and he can't help me.
Isn't that amazing? And that's still kind of the case out there for, I would say the majority of the doctors,
Yeah.
until you really get to the level of the specialty. And even there, a lot of times they don't see that as their job.
I saw one of our main specialists here where I live in our province, and who was touted as being one of the main specialists for dementia. And he looked at me and told me I'm too young. And I sat across the desk from him. He hadn't even opened up my file yet. And I looked across the desk from him. And by this time, of course, I have now been into it for years. I've been doing my global advocacy. I've been working with Dementia Alliance International. I know what the numbers are. I know what the statistics say. And I just looked across the desk at him, dumbfounded, and said, apparently you need to go back and re-educate yourself, because I could introduce you to thousands of people my age who are living with dementia. And that ended our visit.
I was going to say, I bet his jaw just dropped,
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And I think, they look at you like, well, now you're telling me you've got this, and no, I'm not going to listen to you.
Yeah.
Type deal. Now, you probably are aware that I had Kate Swaffer on a couple weeks ago.
Yes.
And she talked a little bit about Dementia Alliance International, which you just mentioned. What drew you to them as well?
Well, in my research, I had reached out to our Alzheimer's Society here. 6 months later, I had still not heard from them. So I was still researching. I was still desperately trying to find help. And I came across Dementia Alliance International. So I went onto their site and I read and researched them. And then I decided to sign up for a free membership. My first Zoom meeting, support group meeting, peer-to-peer, I cried. It was the first time since I'd been diagnosed that I really felt sort of wrapped in a cloak of, we get it, it's okay, and I could just let it all out. And I wasn't being judged. I wasn't having people tell me, well, if you just did this or you just did that. I had people who truly understood my struggles from an angle that no one else can understand. And by the end of it, I had more laughter than I had had since my diagnosis. It was just brings me to tears actually just thinking about it. It was life-changing for me. I always tell them all, you saved my life. You saved my life. Like I was declining really rapidly at that point. And, my doctors had talked about whether I needed to, start considering some kind of care home. And I wasn't allowed to drive at that point, like a lot of things. But through all of them and their help and through their brain health meetings and all of that educational stuff we do, I found the tools to get on a wellness program that turned life around for me. And my doctors supported me in it. They looked at everything I was doing. They watched me level out, and I've stayed there now. I have good periods and bad periods and bad brain fog days, and I do have my day-to-day struggles, but truly life-saving. I try to get everybody that I come in contact with to sign up for the membership, because you can't even put into words what that peer-to-peer support does.
You know, I've seen it in action, not in your group, but just through some work that I do with dementia chats. We have a panel of people that I facilitate a conversation with because I think your voice is so important to be heard. And so we just pick a topic and we talk. But again, we are so tightly knit, and the panel rotates because as time has passed, they have gotten much more involved with advocacy on lots of different levels and stuff. It's such a blessing to me to witness that, or even the Facebook groups that are out there. I used to get so angry at professionals saying, well, you know, those aren't real friendships. And I'm like, they are deeper friendships than most people have.
I can tell you that because of my advocacy and my public speaking, I have met people across not only Canada, but the US, Japan, England, and I've had the opportunity to meet them not only face to face like we are right now, but in actual person, and hug them and sit with them, and at our advocacy groups that we're all end up attending sometimes. And we have friendships that are almost unexplainable, how deep they go. And I love those people. Like, they are my family. They are my family. It is so much more than people think it is.
Yeah.
And you're right. People have this idea that, well, it's not real. Oh, it is so real. In fact, before this coronavirus showed up, I was planning to actually give up my apartment and start doing some things on my bucket list, one of which was doing a road trip which would take me down to the US and back into Canada and bounce from coast to coast, visiting with many of those people who have become family to me. So that's how important it is. That's how important they become in our life.
Yeah, I hear so many people refer to these groups as their family, as their lifesavers. And, you know, there's nothing, you know, more important to us than family and our peers.
Yeah.
And one of the things, I don't know if you know Truthful Loving Kindness, she had mentioned in a video that we did, and she talked about the isolation with the coronavirus, because you mentioned that. And she said, I kind of have that down. You know, that happens to every person who gets diagnosed. She's
That's
like,
funny.
so I've been dealing with this for years. I have my connections. I really don't even go outside much. I can't go to functional physical events because it overwhelms me, the sound. She's like, so I'm pretty content. You know,
I had a conversation with someone this morning earlier about that, and I was just writing a blog actually for our DAI website about that very thing, because it's like, well, my life really hasn't changed a whole lot with this coronavirus, because after I got diagnosed and over the course, for a while, everybody sort of huddles around you and, you know, you poor thing and what can we do and all of that stuff. And then they start to fade away. Right? And they just sort of forget that you're still living with a terminal illness every day. So many connections you have with people fade away. So I live a very isolated life. Society, because of the stigma, because of their fear of dementia, they isolate us without knowing they're isolating us. And maybe they do it unintentionally, but they do it. You know, they don't invite us to things, or they don't set things up that are at times that would be doable for us, because later in the day for lots of things don't work for people with dementia. So we become isolated just by the nature of the illness. I live alone, that isolates me further. So I spend most of my time out walking with my dog, and my my online life with my Zoom meetings and those things are what sustain me. I have friends that live with dementia who live on the other side of Canada. Some of us have tea time every night via video messenger. That's how we stay connected. That's how we stay less lonely. So I look at and I think about people now all struggling to stay in their homes and all going, I can't do this. I can't live like, yes, you can. Yes, you can. It's doable. You can live with it for the time. Everybody else gets to come out of that at the end of all this. Those of us with dementia don't.
Yeah, I think it's really interesting. I never used to do video conferencing, and I started that once I started my dementia work, about 10 years ago. And because of the coronavirus, now I got my high school group together. Now I'm 60, so that, we haven't seen each other for years and years. And, but it's just kind of a fun way to get in touch. And I got together with, on Sunday, girls I used to work with when I was in my 20s. And we get together typically once a month for dinner or brunch or something, but we did virtual, and everyone was like so thankful. They were like, oh my gosh, this means so much to us. So maybe, maybe through this virus, the public will understand a little better what it's like to have dementia and the importance of continued contact and friendships.
And that's what I said this morning when I was talking to someone about it. I hope it gives people that pause to think about, wow, now I understand what she's been saying, right? Now I understand the importance that I stay connected with her or with him or whoever, and that there is ways to do it. This virus is not going away anytime soon. We're just seeing the start of it here. I mean, when you think about it in the context, it started in November in China. They're getting their second wave of it now. We're going to be heading into, we're coming into the end of March. So just that many months, we're already going into the end of summer when you start looking at it that way. So people have to adapt to this way of life that those of us with dementia, maybe we can help teach them, Like maybe here's another example of we still have a lot of abilities, people with dementia. And maybe this is some way that we're going to be able to help people to show them that they can get through it, and they don't have to be cut off from the world and from their fellow people. They just have to do it differently.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I love that. I also think society as a whole has gotten so disconnected and not even realized it from their own family and their own friends, let alone somebody who's sick and has an illness. Everyone's on their phone or they're texting. We're glued to our computers, and I'm guilty of it too. And it really brings the importance of being back together. And I think the other thing we have to focus on is when we get down, how do we find joy, during this time? And so I just did a little video called What's Your Toenail Story? And it's a story about my grandchildren painting my nails. And so I'm in self-isolation. I've been in self-isolation for a week because I traveled, and I was sitting and I was looking at my toenails, and I just got filled with joy thinking about the girls painting my nails. And I think this pandemic is going to get us back to some real basics of what's important and what fills our heart.
Well, it's really strange because for probably 4 or 5 months I have been saying that something's got to change. Something has to change. Not only for those of us living with dementia and the fight to get people to understand that we're still people and we still have a lot of lot to offer the world, and but just in general in the world, that it couldn't keep going the way it was. And then all of a sudden this virus comes, and I'm thinking, this is the correction. And it's sad and it's scary, and I hope people understand that by doing their part, we can all get through it, and we can all come out of it with our world being a little kinder and softer, and being a little more aware of what's truly important. That's one of the things dementia has done for me, is it basically brought me to my knees, right? And then as I slowly started to rebuild, I'm not who I was before my diagnosis. I was in that rat race. I was on that wheel like everybody else. And when it stopped, it was devastating. But now I look at it as a blessing, because I live in the now. I live in the joy of the moment. And, I'm thrilled to be able to go for a walk around the block with my dog, like all those little things, and to say hi to a stranger, and all those little things that everybody else is so busy that they forget to take the time for, right?
Somebody was talking the other day about, everyone complains that they want more time off to do this and that. And it's like, okay, now's your time,
Yeah.
to reconnect, to sleep, to, relax, whatever it is, take up a hobby.
Yeah.
Granted, we've got limitations on where we can go. So I just want to reiterate with Dementia Alliance International, you highly encourage people to go to their joindai.org page and sign up.
Absolutely. I can't emphasize enough. And even for people who maybe struggle with the computer side of things, if they have a caregiver or a loved one who can set it all up for them in front of the computer, and then take that hour to go have some downtime for themselves, do it. Sign your person up. We have people who have hearing problems and all kinds of issues that we help work through with them. And they can still get a lot out of it. And there's so much sharing and caring. And it's free. And there is, there's a lot of good organizations out there. There is none that provides and can provide the level of service that DAI does in the way that it does it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would have to throw in there that Dementia Mentors does a really good job connecting people as well.
Yes.
But again, you guys are connected with Alzheimer's Disease International, which, pulls it up another level in terms of the voice being heard too. And I think a lot of these groups now are expanding into the international space because of the ease of being able to do it. I didn't know anybody outside the country before I started this, and now I'm connected all over the world at all different levels. It is life-changing on so many levels. Now, you also work with another organization, Dementia Advocacy Canada. Can you talk about that organization? I'm not familiar with them.
That's a fairly new organization. Now, that came about after the World Health Organization mandated all countries to put together a strategy on dementia. And so there was a group put together to help the government form that. And out of that came Dementia Advocacy Canada. So it's sort of like a grassroots. It is for caregivers and people with dementia alike. They work very closely with Dementia Alliance International. I'm really happy to be part of them, because we need more here in Canada, and we need that really strong voice. And Dementia Advocacy Canada works closely with government officials and that's a really important piece. They're not trying to do what other organizations do, or take away from other organizations. They're trying to fill the gap of all the other pieces that need to happen. All the working with provincial and federal government, and providing webinars that are important for caregivers and people living with dementia, about providing the resources. So, you know, they provide the resources and the links to people like Dementia Alliance International, so that there's more for people living with dementia, because here in Canada, especially for people who live remotely, there's very little in the way of resources. So this is Dementia Advocacy Canada is a really important tool to reach those people and be able to help them find the resources, and help make sure that our dementia strategy for Canada gets rolled out appropriately, and that the voices of people living with dementia are heard very clearly at all levels. So yeah, really proud of that organization and how it's coming together.
Well, I made me smile when you said getting the voices of actually people living with the disease. Hello, who's the experts here? Because I've been like screaming that from the rooftops forever. You know, it's like, why are we not tapping into these experts? They actually know what it's like and what it feels like. And even though it's different for all of them, we still need to know. We need to hear their situations, their thoughts, their wants, what's working, what's not. I mean, to me, that's just so critical. Now, is Alzheimer's, the Alzheimer's Society, are they involved with that at all, or?
They will, Dementia Advocacy Canada will be working with all those different organizations. To what level, I can't really speak to that. Our Alzheimer's societies are going through a whole bunch of sort of different changes, and because each province sort of runs differently as well. But I do know that they will work with you know, all the different organizations, and try to, you know, like I say, bridge the gaps. I don't think any organization, whether it's the Alzheimer's Society, Dementia Advocacy Canada, even Dementia Alliance International, we shouldn't be competing with each other. We should be working collaboratively. We know who does what really well. We know that the Alzheimer's societies do a fabulous job with the caregivers and their workshops they run for them, and they do a fabulous job doing all the fundraising. They don't need to do what Dementia Alliance International does. They need to support and direct people to it. Dementia Advocacy Canada needs to work with the other organizations so that they can offer the best service to the people.
I so agree. It's about collaboration. And in the US here, there's, you know, fears of, oh, you're going to take my clients. And it's like, oh my gosh, you know, and even like with the virus going around right now, you know, I turned my memory cafe into a virtual cafe, which, you know, many of you guys have been doing online. I know Dementia Mentors has, I believe DAI has.
Yeah.
But, you know, our physical groups, I thought, well, I'm going to switch ours over. So I reached out. We used to have 3 groups. We had people driving an hour one way to get to us. And then more popped up closer to home, which was fine. But I reached out to some of those other groups and said, if you've got people that want to join us, because I know people might need more communication and contact, you know, they're more than welcome, you know, to come. And it's not taking away. And I talked with some of the other facilitators, and I said, I just want you to know, I am not trying to refill my bucket over here, you know, and told people that's not what this is about. This is about filling a need, working together, and giving people options and choices. That was the thing that I found was missing when I was going through it with my mom, and that's actually why I created Alzheimer's Speaks, was people need choices.
And that needs to, that I think is a message. Actually, it was one of the things I was going to be speaking to at one of the conference I was scheduled to go to, which has now been postponed, of course. So that was one of the other things that I really strongly feel that, you know, there is the bigger organizations that take the bulk of fundraising funds, and they need to take part of that and put it aside so that they can help the other organizations send people with dementia who are doing the advocating, who are doing that work, to attend those types of things. Instead of doing this, well, it's ours and it's for us. No, this is about people living with dementia and how we can best help them and how we can best support their families as well. So we need to disperse that a little bit differently. Like you say, it isn't about filling my bucket more. It's about, let's do it so it's the best for everyone.
Yeah, that's been my mode of operation since day one. And yet,
Yes.
when I started this, you know, because I was in residential real estate for 25 years. When I started this, I decided, I made a commitment. I said, I'm not working in a broken system. I can't align with these organizations because they're not where I'm at all.
Yeah.
And that got, it was really difficult because people saw me as a threat. And it's like, I'm like the most collaborative person you probably ever meet, but it's like, I'm not going to spin my wheels convincing you of the greater good. I will try a couple of times, but then after that, I need to align with people that get it, because we can't, time's a wasting, you know, on all.
And that's, I'm very much, I'm glad that you're like that. I'm very much like that. I'm not the most popular person within some organizations, because I have gone after them for the fact that they have told me point blank, when I'm trying to fundraise to get myself to these events, to advocate, to speak to all the, you know, these are where all the people that need to hear us speak are. And I have to go out and fundraise to get myself there. And I can't get funds because they're taking all the pot. And people say, well, they should be funding you. Well, why aren't they? So you go to them for funding and they say, well, no, that's our money. And it's like, wait a minute, how can that be your money? And how can you justify sending 7 or 10 of your own people who are already on your payroll to go, but you can't have any funds to help me get there? And I'm representing our country, and I'm representing the people living with the illness. So I, like you, I am not very popular in some of those places because I do speak up and out about that. Because I do believe that has to change. That has to change.
I agree. Every conference that I speak at, I ask, are there going to be people with dementia? And I have recommendations. And a lot of times they'll say yes, but then they don't want to pay them. They don't want to pay their travel. And I'm like, you know, a lot of people with dementia are struggling financially and they need the support. And then there's others that say, hey, if I take that income, it's going to screw up the monies I'm receiving, you know, but it could be donated to a cause. I mean, there's lots of different ways to dance that dance, you know, and it's hard because when you speak up, I mean, you kind of get bullied and you get pegged. And I was told I was a competition of our largest organization here. And I'm like, how? I'm one person. You're this massive organization.
Still a threat, right?
Yeah, and yet it ended up being, because I went to the top with it, saying, and I mean, I was very honest in terms of talking. I don't know if you want to align with me or if I want to align with you. We need to have a discussion. And it ended up being just Minnesota, not on a national basis. And a lot of the organizations around here, you know, have me come out and speak, and we have great relations. So sometimes it's just the people at the moment, but they can have a long lasting effect,
Yeah.
you know, in terms of how that works. So I'm kind of a grassroots girl myself. And so in terms of setting up dementia friendly communities and businesses and memory cafes, I'm very basic. And I tell people up front, don't get people you think you have to have or organizations you think you have to be credible. You are credible. You will be serving the public, and get those that align with you, because when you do that, you will be able to do so much more, so much faster.
Yeah. And you know, here at home, of course, I work with Dementia Advocacy Canada, which is great. And I think they're going to become stronger and more powerful as time goes on here, because it is fairly new and unfolding. But already we're seeing the growth. In my last round of talks with our big organization, they did say that they're probably going to have to rethink and relook at how they're doing these types of things with funding and stuff, because I will publicly speak out and I will call them out every time, and they don't like it, but they can't say I'm wrong, because I'm not wrong. And I don't want to have to fight them. I don't want to have to go after them. I want them to sit at the table and go, let's figure out a better way to do this.
Yeah, better way to serve. Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. Say, can I get, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot, but do you know the website for Dementia Advocacy Canada?
It's a great organization. Lisa, Mary Beth, Ron, there's a whole bunch of really good people, both living with dementia or being care partners, at the head of it, and really doing some good work. And we do work on projects together collaboratively, with different research groups and with other organizations. So it's another important tool that we really needed in Canada. And I know they work very closely with us and that's my connection with them, is my connection with Dementia Alliance International. So I'm sort of that international component for them, but from within Canada. So it's a well-rounded organization, and we're looking at the Canadian component, but also the whole global component, right? Because there's the human rights side of things. There's all of those pieces for people with dementia that we need to make sure are looked after properly.
Yeah, I think it's really important to not just look locally. And I get so frustrated when, because my resources are global as well. And, you know, I don't have to be in your backyard for me to be able to help you. And neither do a lot of other resources. And yet people are still like, well, who's in the yellow pages? Who's in my backyard? And it's like, no, we are much bigger and better than that right now. And we really need to tap into those things. I mean, that's how we got memory cafes here. That's how we got dementia friendly communities started here. It wasn't something we thought of.
So much to learn from other communities when you look at what Taiwan's doing, what Japan's doing, and there's all these countries that are doing some incredible work. So we need that global overview to help us improve things right in our own backyard, as you say. Without that, our vision is limited, and our scope becomes too small. And we want to be able to help people in the best way we can. And you're right, we have to have that whole global approach to it. And I'm really fortunate, like you, because I speak on that global sort of stage, not just at home. That helps me bring that perspective back here for us here at home. Then, you know, I've had people say to me, why do you do that? It drains you. It takes so much out of you. And it's like, it's important work. And on one hand, yes, it's exhausting for people with dementia. Like, you'll work for months and months and months if you're going to be giving a speech. The travel takes a lot out of you. But on the other side of that, you're helping improve your quality of life. So why wouldn't you? And if I can improve my quality of life, then maybe I can improve someone else's quality of life.
You know, one of the things that I hear from many people who are diagnosed and who have become advocates is that they've never felt so purposeful in their whole entire life. And for that, they're really grateful.
And that's so true. I am so grateful. And that brings me to, I wrote my book, and my book is called "And for This I Am Grateful." And it sounds like such an odd name for a book about dementia. But, you know, yes, it's hard to live with a terminal illness. It's hard to digest it all. It's hard to, your life is this one day and it's something totally different the next. And you have to figure out how to still be alive when they tell you you're in fact dying and get ready to die. And you have to figure out how to balance that. And in that, and through my advocacy work and my work with Dementia Alliance International and Dementia Advocacy Canada, my life has become so enriched. It's so enriched, and I am grateful. And that's why I called my book "In For This I'm Grateful," because for all the dementia has taken from me, it has given back tenfold. I don't mean to make the illness sound pretty. It is not. My days when I'm struggle, and yes, I can sort of be on cue here for an hour or two, or, you know, sometimes I manage a day or two without too many blunders, but there's a lot of stuff in the background that people don't see to help me be able to do this, right? All the preparation that has to happen, and the reminders, and all of those things that have to take place for this to be successful. But that doesn't mean that it's easy. It's not easy. It's a struggle. It's an emotional illness, because you're in a constant changing environment within yourself. It's a constant inner change going on between your brain and the rest of you, and it's this constant battleground almost. But in all of that, there are all the things to be so grateful for and to be so thankful for. My life in many ways is better. Financially, my life is not better. I took a hit. Health-wise, no, my life is not better. It struggles, and it struggles a lot. But in so many other ways, the richness makes up for all of that. It makes up for all of that, you know? The connections I have with people, being able to work at something that truly matters. Not that my work before didn't matter. And I advocated while I was working for people living with dementia, and every time I'm out there advocating, I think about all those people and all their families. And I think, wow, I really do have purpose now. You know, it has given me a purpose and a clarity that I didn't have before.
Yeah, it's beautiful the way that you explain that. And I get that, because I tell people when I'm out speaking that my mom's disease was the biggest gift I'll ever receive, because it changed how I do everything, how I look at life, and everything that I learned through dementia is good for all of my life.
What a wonderful gift your mom gave you, even though she had to do the struggling within part. She left you with a gift that is still carrying on, because you're still using that gift today. And that's for those of us with dementia. It may tire us out, and it may drain us, and it may take us a week to recover when we've gone off to do a speaking engagement, or even longer sometimes. But what it gives us is so much more, you know, and having that clarity and having that purpose is, and knowing that what you're doing matters. It matters. and it doesn't just matter to me. So when everybody else is so busy out there running around, being so busy that they don't even know what they're busy doing half of the time, I know what I'm doing, and I know what I'm doing matters. And so for that clarity, I'm really grateful. Really
Yeah,
grateful.
it's pretty amazing how many lives you can touch. You know, I speak around basically in the U.S. here, and people go, oh, you know, I've been following you, and I mean, they feel like I'm their best friend because they know about me, but I don't know about them, and I find that so interesting. Or when you hear, oh, so and so told me, and there's kind of this spider web of how information is passed along. And you know, I'm not one that does Google Analytics and all of that because I don't have time and I don't have the money to put into that. I just try to speak with an authentic voice, which I think is what you're doing too, and stand up and do the right thing. And if you're not comfortable with it, try to work in a respectful manner, but not let it slide. And I want people to do the same with me. You know, I think that's how we improve, but it's not by attacking or bullying or misusing people.
That's exactly right. And I always say to people, this isn't actually about me. In a small way it is, but in the bigger sense, I don't do this for me. I don't do this for recognition or glory or all of those things that I've been accused of. I do it because it matters. And people living with dementia matter. And what happens to them matters. So you're right. And I write my blog, you know, and I have had people reach out to me from all over the country and around the world. And I have been fortunate enough to meet some of those people. And it's like I'm their lifeline. And, you know, I help them. I can introduce them to the organizations and give them the tools so that they don't feel so isolated. So if that's my role, if I am a beacon to help others, then wow, that's a pretty honorable gift to be given. If you wanna put it into context, it's a gift I've been given. I didn't write before. I've now written a book. I didn't speak publicly before. I now speak publicly. And those are all gifts that came with my dementia that were not part of my life before. So I look at it as those are gifts that were given to me and I have to use them appropriately. And you're right, it's not to be a bully and it's not to be mean. It's to stand up and fight hard for those whose voices can't do that. Because not everybody's comfortable to do it. Not everybody is in a place within their journey with dementia to do it. So those of us that can do, that's a real honor to be able to do that for people. It isn't about me. It's about everybody else out there.
It's funny you say that. When I started, you know, Alzheimer's Speaks, and I've continuously said this. I've always said it really isn't even mine. It's for everybody. I mean, and that's how I built it. It's really about raising everyone's voice and inviting anyone in who wants to come, as long as it's a respectful conversation. I don't have to agree with you. I think that's how we grow. And information someone's giving might be ideal for someone else. That's okay.
That's okay.
That was one of the things I was fighting for me as a family member was I don't want to only know resources available because you're making a profit off it. I want all the resources and then I will choose what I need, but I don't want someone deeming what I need because they're looking at a profit margin. And that really upset me fully. And I thought there's got to be more out there. And I've just been amazed at the amount of resources that are out there. And I've been, to be honest, kind of disgusted that we don't have a universal resource directory for all of these. I was working with somebody here in Minnesota, and they just haven't been able to get enough money, but they've got it all figured out, but they need the funding to be able to get it out there. And
Yeah.
this is such a huge need, but it's got to be easy, and it's got to be open to everybody. And companies have to stop being fearful of their competition. And I see it even with the really large organizations like insurance and hospitals. They're like, well, we don't, we don't want them on this resource directory, or we don't want them affiliated. I'm like, people know that hospital's across the street from you, and they're going to go where their insurance pays anyways.
Well, and don't you think, I mean, I know we have our different healthcare here, but to me, all of those resources should be in one place, like you say, because, like all these big organizations and companies have to realize that if they give people all of the resources and they are able to make the decisions for themselves, it's going to benefit them. If they withhold, people go online and research everything themselves anyways. And they're going to say, well, why didn't you tell me this was available? And so let's put it all there so people can make an informed decision for themselves.
Yeah, what I liked about these guys that are working on this resource directory was it was one main portal that held everything. And then everybody could put a portal on their own website, same information, but their own branding, on top of it. But we went back and forth over, how do you do this? Because people want control over the information, and we're past that now. The information is available to everyone. And when you don't give people all the information, now they're going to come back and attack you, or they're going to distrust you.
Yep.
And, you can have a disclosure that everything hasn't been personally vetted by your organization, and it's up to that individual to do their own work. Because even if it's vetted, the next day they could hire a Nimrod or come up with a program that is not good. You can't control that stuff. But I know here in the US, we're kind of sue happy. And, we also have to be responsible for our choices.
Yeah.
That we make, in a reasonable fashion. I mean, I'm all out for protecting people, but I think instead of plucking everybody out, you pluck the bad eggs when you hear about them.
Yeah.
You address that instead of punishing everyone. And I think that is just I think it's a mindset that has to change.
Yeah. And that's the big thing for me is things have to change. Because we're doing a disservice to people living with dementia if we don't change how all of that is given and delivered. Just because people have dementia, they're not stupid, and they know how to research. And let me tell you, because most of them are left to their own defenses because there isn't that resource guide for them. So people like me had to sit down and spend hours and hours and days and weeks and months weeding through all that information that's out there on the World Wide Web to figure out where the best fit was for me. And I'm not the only one doing that. Yeah. We are not stupid. We have an illness. That doesn't make us stupid. So we know how to do that. So
and you have the time to do it too.
And we have the time to do it. We're dismissed from our jobs. We're told to go home and get ready to die. Well, most of us aren't ready to die. So we're at home doing the research. So, all of these big organizations need to get the message that it's time to come together, figure out how to work collaboratively, figure out how to put the tools in place together so that it's all out there, and we still have the ability and the know-how to decide for ourselves what's going to be best and work for us.
Exactly.
And everybody should have the option to make those choices. which organizations they want to, and which type of groups they want to attend, and all of those things should be there for them.
I totally agree. We need to wrap up now. I could talk to you all day long. I love this conversation. So thank you so much for joining
Oh, I'm
us.
so happy to be here, and I'm so happy to meet you face to face.
Yeah, it's always fun.
I always follow you, so it's nice to meet face to face.
Oh, great. Now, for people who are interested in Dementia Alliance International, they can go to their website, dementiaallianceinternational.org.
Yeah.
And join. And they have a special URL for that that's real easy. It's joindai.org. Or if you want information from them, you can email them at info@infodai.org. And then, Christine, you mentioned you had a blog. Are you on Facebook?
I am on Facebook, and it's called Chrissy's Journey. I do my blog on there, but it is a very personal journey. I don't sugarcoat the good days from the bad. I am a very positive person, so I try to, even on my worst days, I try to find a positive in it. But I don't hide. I don't make my illness pretty. So, which I think a lot of people really appreciate.
Okay, sounds good. So I also want to give a plug for Dementia Advocacy Canada. That's www.dementiacanada.com. In wrapping up, I want to thank you so much, Christine, for taking this wonderful time to talk with us. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation, as I'm sure our audience has. Until next time, everybody, stay safe and healthy out there, and don't forget to wash your hands. Bye now.